I have a fully loaded Chevy Malibu LT2. So I've had it for a few hours, been driving it around. I've got it as a loaner car. So let's take a look around it. It's actually really sharp looking. Love the wheels on this thing. And let's get into the review. What's good, YouTube? This hood is really light. Giddy up! Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like because it helps the channel to grow. On with the video. So first of all, guys, it does come with the regular Chevy key fob. It's got a nice weight to it. It does look nice. I mean, it's the same one that I've got on my Camaro and that comes on all the other Chevys. And it does have remote start, so if you actually lock the car and then press and hold this button, it does start the car right up. So that is a nice feature. If you look at the front of the car, it's good looking. I mean, I don't know how well the chrome will last on this vehicle, but it does look sharp. It does give this car a nice look. You do have LED lights. It's got some fog lights, and then I believe regular halogen bulbs. If you get a little bit closer, these do light up regular. So let me go ahead and turn these on just so you can see how they look. Yeah, so as I said, does look like they are just a regular halogen bulb, but they still look nice. I really like the shape of these lights, and I think that they actually did a really good job when it comes to the shape of this grille. So fairly nice styling. I actually think that this car at the front looks a lot sleeker than what its bigger brother, the Impala, looks. Now, as we come down the side of the car, this is where I actually think it looks a lot better than what the Impala does. It's got a much sleeker shape, whereas the Impala is a lot more boxy. And if we take a look at these wheels actually look really nice. So they are 245s on the width, and they're a 40-inch sidewall, so nice and sporty. And then they're on a 19-inch rim, and these rims just polished aluminium. They look really nice, and they're on these Continental tires, so it gives the car quite a nice stance. And their overall lines down the side of the car look fairly good too. It's got quite a nice classy looking Malibu sign. It's not too big, not too overblown like on some cars. And then you have color matched mirrors with a little bit of plastic on the side, and then you've got chrome around the door frames, which if this was like a sportier model, I would prefer that it did not have the chrome around it, that it was kind of more like a gunmetal black. But since this is, you know, kind of a small luxury for Chevy, then I don't mind it having that. The trunk size in this thing is quite good as well. Let me pop the trunk, do a double press. It doesn't flip up by itself like some. If you take a look, it's quite a large trunk. It is 15 cubic feet or 15.7, somewhere around there. And you actually get in this car a real spare. So that is a nice touch. I hate it when you just get fix-a-flat kits. There are no ropes or nets or anything like that in this particular model, but the seats do a 20-40 split, so you can fit more in there. And on this one, if you look, you cannot see any kind of exhaust pipes. So if you're one of those people that like to see that, this is not the car. But let's just take a step back, because I think that the car, the shape of it looks really nice. This would look pretty clean with these if you got like a good tint on it. And the side, you know, the front of the car looks quite excellent. And Chevy's been making the Malibu for quite some time. If you go back way back in the day, the Malibu was actually kind of a muscle car. This one also comes with this like panoramic sunroof, which is a nice touch. Now, if we look in the back of the car, you're going to see that there is a decent amount of legroom. Let me move my bag. This seat is in my seating position, so if I get in, oh, it is a tight squeeze. So look at that. My legs are basically wrapped around the seat. I can fit, but it's not comfortable. If I move over to the other side, where it's a little bit more in a normal person's seating position, that's not as tall as me, then you get a decent amount of leg room. You get these mat pockets at the back. The plastic on the doors is kind of hard, and you get this fake wood trim in the back, and you've got very tiny pockets here that is actually too small to store a drink. But on the plus side, you get a USB-A, then you get a house outlet plug, and you get a 12-volt outlet. So decently equipped in the back for your passengers. If you turn around here, you get a armrest that actually has very usable cup holders. They're reasonably deep. They can store large items, and the armrest is not rock hard like it is in some cars. It's actually quite soft. So that is a nice touch. Now moving to the front of the vehicle, this is actually quite a nice place to be. So if you look at these seats, it's got a nice leather finish to it that matches the steering wheel. Let me close the door just so I can get rid of some of the glare. And the steering wheel is actually excellent. It feels great. As you see, all the Chevy stuff pops up as you close the door, and it is push button start. So you press on the brake, you hit the engine start button, starts right up. And one thing that I really like in this car are the gauges. So it's very clear. It has everything you need to see. And if you flick through the options here, then you'll see it's got, let me clear that. There we go. You got a very clear speedometer. Go through these options a little bit and you'll see you've got seconds, distance, or driver assistance, speed limit, timer, tire pressure. So you got all these goodies that you can go through, as well as you've got a decent amount of safety features on this car too. So you have on the steering wheel the lane keep assist. You've also got the crash alert. If you press that, you can change the difference. They're the different settings for the collision alert. So that is quite good on this car. And the car has a heated steering wheel, but there's one caveat. I noticed when you turn the heating steering wheel on, only the right side of the steering wheel heats up. This is a brand new car. It's only got a little over 2,000 miles on it. Only this side of the steering wheel heats up. This side of the steering wheel actually stays cold. So I don't know if that's just a weird Malibu quirk or if there's something wrong with this vehicle, but that is what I've noticed. The car has an excellent looking touchscreen. It has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, the wireless versions. It's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. And it's super sensitive, which is a good thing. You have this nice little gear shifter, which is mated to the CVT transmission. You've got more kind of fake wood material, comfortable armrest, and there's lots of storage in this pocket right here, like a ton of storage. So that is excellent. And then if you come under here, you've got one USB-C, USB-A, auxiliary, and another 12-volt. And then you have a reasonable sized glove compartment. It's not that big, but it's decent. And you've got a section for a drink and then a decent sized pocket on the driver's side and the passenger side. And I will say that this car comes with the Bose stereo system, as you can see down here. So the stereo system actually sounds really nice, got no complaints. It has dual climate control. You've got cooled seats and heated seats. They've both got 3 different settings to it. So it's nicely equipped. There is some material that feels a little bit cheap, but that's what you're gonna get when you buy a car that, you know, you're saving some dollars on. So before we look under the hood, this is the sunroof, which is awesome. Everything is one touch. So if I press this button, it does this shade automatically, which is really nice. If I press this button, puts the shade back, and it will actually retract the sunroof all the way. So it makes the car seem a lot bigger than what it is. I mean, it doesn't open up all the way, but you've got another piece of glass here, so it kind of brightens up the interior a little bit, especially with the interior being so dark. All right, guys, one thing I forgot to show you, other than this beautifully clear dash, is the Android Auto. It's got the Waze on there. It's fairly responsive, but because my phone is not the best, then it's a little bit slow. But I've used it with other phones before, and it's very clear. You can have the maps, you know, the Waze, all of that stuff. But also, one other thing that I didn't show you is the backup camera is super duper clear. It's got one of the clearest resolutions on it. So as I back up right now, it's got the trajectory lines, and it's got a really clear resolution. So definitely can't complain about that. And that is one of the best parts about that screen. And I think it's like an 8, it's either an 8 or a 10-inch touch screen. So definitely a nice touch on this car. One other thing to note is the paint on this car is actually quite excellent. It's not a color that I would usually go for. It's kind of like a bronzy, browny color, but the flakes and the specks in the car actually look really good. It's kind of hard to catch it on camera, but it's got a really nice finish to it. Okay, so as we look in the engine bay, I must say they did a good job. It actually looks pretty decent in there. I'm not a huge fan of the big plastic cover, but it's minimal, so you know, it's quite nice. It's not too bad. And let's just go ahead and give you the specs. So this is a 1.5 liter dual overhead cam turbocharged engine. It's mated to a CVT transmission, which, by the way, I hate. That's the weak part of this car. That's the part I do not like. And it has 160 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. It does 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds, does the quarter mile in 16.1 seconds, and it has a top speed of 130 miles an hour. So it's got decent power, and it's going to give you decent gas mileage, which is 27 in the city and 35 on the highway. And then, as I said before, the trunk is 15.7 cubic feet, and it weighs, in this particular model, since it's pretty much loaded, it weighs 3,200 pounds, or 3,223 to be exact. So it is quite nice. I wish it had hood struts instead of a prop rod, but you know, that's probably, you know, saving a few more pennies by not putting hood struts on it. But it's quite a quiet engine bay there. And I think if you're looking for a car that gets decent gas mileage, something like this or a Honda Civic is gonna do the job. I'll tell you the negative first, just because most of it's positive. So let's just get the negative out of the way. The main thing that I dislike about this car is the fact that it's got this CVT transmission. If it had a regular automatic, I would like it a lot more. Or if it had an automatic transmission that feels as good as the transmission in the newer Honda Civics, then I would have no problem, because they actually, even though it's a CVT, they are actually really good CVT transmissions as far as how the car feels when you're driving it. In this car, the way it shifts, or you know, CVTs don't shift, but the way it just moves and the way it builds power is very sluggish. So that is the weak part of this car. The steering in this is also not as sharp and not as direct as it is in, say, the Honda Civic, the sedan version. But other than that, the car drives really nice. So I said the steering is not as sharp, but it's still good. It's still decent. This is a very nice car to drive as far as how it feels. There's nothing wrong with the driving dynamics in that sense. And it's very smooth and it's very quiet in here. So I've got no real gripes about the way that the car drives. I mean, maybe if there was something else that I could change about the steering, it would be to maybe have a mode where you can make the steering wheel feel a little bit heavier instead of it being really light, because it's kind of light and darty, but not super direct like the Civic was. But if you are, you know, into blasting the tunes and all of that, the Bose stereo, but yeah, the stereo sounds good. It sounds very clear in here. So the stereo system is on point, especially when it comes to if you want songs that have got heavy bass to it. Now, if you want to pass somebody on the highway, you want to do a really quick, fast pass, the car does lack power since it only has 160 horsepower. So it's not the quickest thing when it comes to passing other cars or when it comes to any kind of racing, but you know, that's not what this car's for. It's a nice car to commute. If you've got 2 children, they'll fit in this car just fine. And if you've got 3 kids and you're a taller guy like me driving, then whoever the kid is sitting behind you is going to be squished. So I'd suggest maybe going with the Impala or something a little bit bigger when it comes to that. Okay, I'm going to put my foot down. Let's get on there a little bit. Oh yeah. This is definitely not going to blow you away when it comes to overall speed. And I wish that it was that it had a little bit more power when it comes to passing other cars. But that's just a small thing. I would definitely drive one of these if it was just a car that I was going to and from work mostly, that I needed to save gas mileage. But I'm doing this sharp right bend right now to get on the highway, and it feels good. I can definitely actually feel what the tires at the front of the car are doing, which in a lot of cheap front wheel drive cars, you get no feel when it comes to the front of the vehicle. Now the engine, excuse me, doesn't sound that good, and you don't really get much of an exhaust sound. But you know, this is not the Malibus of the past that were muscle cars. So you know, it is what it is. But overall, though, it's a really nice driving car. I feel like I've got good space. It's roomy. It feels to me like it's almost as big in the front as what my 2010 Chevy Impala is, or whatever year. Yeah, 2010. So, but yeah, feels good overall. And I will say that it is quite a quiet cabin. The wind noise is minimal, and I've driven other cars that are supposed to be higher end and cost a lot more money than what this does, and this car is more quiet than what those are. So maybe it's the aerodynamics, maybe it's its bullet shape, who knows, but the bottom line is it's a decently quiet car. I definitely am not a fan of the hard plastic on the dash and stuff like that, but most of that are not high touch points. Let me give the car another compliment. When it comes to the brakes are very responsive and very sharp, so I have no complaints when it comes to the brakes. I've done a few emergency stops with them just for testing sake, and I was impressed. It stops the car, so there's more than enough braking power for this size of a car and how much this weighs. Of course I'm getting in traffic now. But yeah, super quiet car. My favorite thing about the car is actually the way the steering wheel feels and the dash. I love the dash layout. It's just so clear. I love the giant font that they used, and they have the digital gauge in the middle, and then they've got the analog gauge around the edge, but it's actually not analog, it's also digital. They just made it to look like it was analog. And then I believe that the actual tachometer is a real analog tachometer. But yeah, overall guys, the driving experience in this car is quite nice. It would be a car that would be on my short list for another commuter car to get to and from work, since it gets good gas mileage. So I'm going to put my Lawson score up on the screen right now. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And if you own one of these cars and there's some weird quirks, or if you would recommend it, or if you would recommend against it, don't forget to put that in the comment sections of the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.